hey there guys, I'm Axel Beast, and this is the Curiosity Shop, the ZeldaEngine.net video mailbag where I answer your Zelda questions. Now, just before I get started, there was actually a lot of people who got, like, a portion of the, like, music and quotes and whatnot right from the last mailbag. And there were so many that I actually ended up using a bunch of them, so I'm not going to be calling them all out. No one got every single one, but, like, a good, like, half of the questions here got, like, a fair amount of them. So just be warned, like, good job, guys. Alright, first question. Screaming Jaws asks, which was the hardest heart piece you had to get or find in any Zelda game? Goron Dancing, Oracle of Ages. Jeffrey the Great asks, what was the first Zelda game that you played when you were little? Well, actually, this is probably a lot of people are going to get the same answer, but again, tell me your guys' in the comments. What was your first Zelda game when you were a kid? But for me, it was Ocarina of Time, and I think that's the answer that most people will give. I actually, rented Ocarina of Time, played up to Dodongo's Cavern, though I didn't do that dungeon, and then I actually didn't touch the series till a while later when I got A Link to the Past used, and then later Majora's Mask. I actually beat both of those games before I completed Ocarina of Time, so I guess it's kind of an odd start, but it's still, I started with Ocarina of Time like a lot of people did. Again, tell me yours. Smitty asks, which of the Zelda games do you find the most frustrating to play? I personally find Skyward Sword quite frustrating due to the motion controls. Second would be Spirit Tracks thanks to that Spirit Flute. Well, I think a lot of people would probably give similar answers, although I personally had no trouble with Skyward Sword, and oddly enough, not with Spirit Tracks until my later playthroughs. No trouble first time, tons on subsequent playthroughs, so I really don't know what happened there. Either way, I think for me that the ones that I'd list as the most frustrating are actually my bottom 3 Zelda games, and I'm not sure if they should go in this order, and one of them, which is Oracle of Seasons, I'm not sure if it necessarily belongs down there because I honestly haven't completed the game yet. But with Oracle of Seasons, I just find the overworld extremely frustrating and difficult to deal with. How you have to switch seasons, and sometimes the seasons switch on their own as you're just going through new areas. It's just an overly complicated mechanic for just navigating the overworld, and they didn't need to do it like that. They could have made it simpler and more intuitive. And then again, other than that, the most frustrating ones for me were the Wind Waker for just taking so long to get everywhere and how easy everything was. It's an unnecessary strain, and then not enough strain for like the wrong parts of the game. And then Twilight Princess just for a lot of weird little things that slow the game down. But you know, like, I don't think I've ever played a Zelda game that I didn't enjoy pretty thoroughly. I've enjoyed every Zelda game I've played, so while I've had frustrations, it's not enough to ruin the games for me. But yeah, certain parts definitely frustrate me quite a bit. Bradley Crowling asks, if Link is supposed to represent the player, then why doesn't he ever flirt back? All of the attractive women in Zelda games, like Ocarina of Time, flirt with Link constantly, but Link never seems to notice. Most gamers would see such an opportunity, but why not Link? Is he too good for them, or is he just stupid? Is he saving himself for marriage? What is the reason? I think that the reason is just that they never, like, I don't think player choice was ever supposed to be a significant aspect of the game, and in the early Zelda games, the answer to making Link the representative of the player was to just make him blank. He just didn't say or do anything, so you could just put whatever answer you wanted to have given in there, and just, like, imagine it, I guess. They didn't do any of the player choice stuff until, like Skyward Sword, as the earliest example I can think of it. I'm sure there are other examples, but I don't think anyone as far as Skyward Sword, and that did give you the chance to, like, kind of flirt and, like, reciprocate the crushes a lot of characters had on Link. So I guess that my best example is my best answer is just that they hadn't really gotten into that yet in terms of game features and whatnot, but they're starting to do that now. Be interesting to see more of it, I guess. And yeah, most would seize the opportunity. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't one of them. Freender10 asks, if Nintendo were to combine all the means of transportation we have seen so far into the same game combined with a diverse overworld, what would you think of the idea? Well, my first thought would be probably huge mess impending, but at the same time, there's actually something a little interesting about the idea. I actually, like, very shortly before Skyward Sword released, like, just a matter of weeks, I actually had a dream that I was actually, like, announced that it would have, like, underwater travel and air travel and land travel, and obviously this is a crazy dream, but the mental picture it gave me of such a concept was interesting to me, and it would be fascinating to see a Zelda game where they really did manage to combine them well. Like, you had the land overworld, which you traverse fairly normally. Maybe you have, I don't know, a train as like a warping system, like you could warp between train stations or something. Then you had, like, flight, parts of the game where you have to fly. Not necessarily up in this, like, a sky world, but even just between mountains or other high-up areas, and also having to go underwater. I think it would be actually kind of interesting, or across water. But anyway, it would be kind of interesting to have an overworld with so many ways to traverse it. But it would have to be really big. And I think that that would overshadow a lot of other aspects of the game design. Not that it necessarily would be bad to have a Zelda game that just focused on the world itself, but I think it's kind of like not quite on the list of priorities that they have for Zelda games, or that most people want to see in the Zelda games. I think it would just be kind of a weird experiment. Not necessarily bad, but just kind of a little unlikely at this time. So yeah. Jason Grace 71 asks, if Nintendo decides to use voice acting in a future Zelda title, how do you think it will affect or contribute to the depth of the story and plotline? I don't think it really will, like, not on its own. Certainly you have, like, an opportunity to show more emotion in the characters and give a better indication of, like, what the characters, how they feel, or just how they sound, and give the player a better, like, picture of the world and how the characters are. But at the same time, it doesn't really change anything about, like, the rest of the storytelling. I don't think that the storytelling is going to improve just because of the voice acting, really. I think what's going to happen is, if they decide to do voice acting and they decide to, you know, improve the storytelling, then it will be better storytelling with voice acting. But, you know, obvious. This is the obvious. But otherwise, I really don't think that there's any real correlation here. And I think that that's actually why there's no real good argument against voice acting, because it really shouldn't change what's already there in the Zelda series. It's just another element that would be cool to see in itself. Although, you know, I'm not 100% pro the voice acting in Zelda. I'm really neutral on the issue. Steve Rudzinski asks, so many Legend of Zelda games have time travel as a major part of the story. Sometimes Link travels hundreds or thousands of years. What do you think of the possibility of Link meeting literally another Link from a previous game? It just seems like, with all the time jumping Link has done, running into another Link doesn't seem unlikely. Well, I don't know about the idea of putting it into a time travel plot, because honestly, I think it's kind of time for them to just drop that. Like, don't you think we dealt with time travel enough in a series that doesn't actually, like, didn't start with that and doesn't talk about time travel in the title or anything? It's not like a time travel series. Why is time travel the default plot element they always keep going to, you know? So I think they just need a break from that. In terms of meeting another Link, that actually has happened. Hyrule Historia confirmed that the Hero Shade or Hero Spirit, or whatever it's supposed to call it, in Twilight Princess is actually the Link from Ocarina of Time. So in Twilight Princess's Link actually meets Ocarina of Time's Link. So that's two Links actually meeting. So they can do that with other scenarios. There's other ways to do that. It doesn't need to be time travel. I guess if they were going to do time travel, it would be neat, but it could make a very convoluted storyline. But I don't know. Zelda has plenty of that. Greg asks, what is your opinion of Zelda II? I've always liked it, but so many Zelda fans I've known over the years hate it. Zelda II is actually one of the only Zelda games that I have yet to actually play at all. I think a lot of people do hate it just because it's very different and because it's extremely hard, as I've heard anyway. But I actually think that the game looks fascinating. I don't think it's bad because it's different, because like a lot of people have said, this is only the second game of the series. It wasn't like there was this huge precedent on how the series was supposed to be back then. So it being different, it's not something you can really say it's bad for. You might dislike it because it's just not your style, but you can't say there's anything wrong with it, really, because there wasn't a precedent at the time. There's nothing I've learned about the game that implies to me it has bad design, so I don't think, you know, there's a good reason to hate it. It's a very hard game, and I think people can't get over that sometimes. It looks very interesting to me. I do want to play it. I actually like the idea of a Zelda platformer in general. I think it's really cool to have the exploration and the Zelda world put into that kind of format, and I'm very interested in playing Adventure of Link for that reason. I'd honestly like to see the idea again sometime. Legend of Link 99 asks, if Navi is your guardian fairy in Ocarina of Time, then why do fairies found inside pots revive you when you die, but Navi can't? Well, do you want to eat Navi? I mean, she's your guardian fairy. Do you want to eat your guardian fairy? You catch fairies you don't care about to do that. Strike Anywhere 3 asks, I enjoy playing Ocarina of Time and watching the walkthroughs, but something that has always given me pause is when it comes to the 6 sages. I haven't really found it anywhere, so you might be able to help me with it. Are the sages dead? Did they become sages after they had died, or are they still alive? The reason I ask is because the sages will be in the temple and then vanish never to be seen again. Was this ever addressed anywhere, or does anyone know? Thanks, mate. Well, no, this isn't really addressed. It's something that people do speculate about a lot. The sages don't seem to appear in physical form, and that is very interesting. I don't think it's so much that they died, although that is, I guess, a plausible theory. I just don't see like why it has to be that. I think it could also be more interesting that they just take on like a spirit-like form. Certainly they have to kind of go somewhere else because they're hanging out in the Sacred Realm. It's unclear, I guess, whether or not, even if they took on some kind of ethereal quality during those sequences, which isn't really debatable, despite not knowing the nature of it, they clearly weren't kind of really there during when their like appearances in Ganon's castle. But I think that there's like a lot of ways you can interpret that, and there's no way to reason. There isn't necessarily any reason to think that that's permanent. Like they could actually possibly return to like a physical existence in the world later. They were just, I don't know, doing a sacred realm thing, you know? It's very unclear. It wasn't really explained. Certainly them dying is an interesting theory, but there's a lot of other ways to interpret it. They could have taken on a spiritual form just because that's what a sage is, or they had to take on that form because they were in the sacred realm. I don't know. There's just no straight answer for this because the game didn't really address it. Sorry, I can't give you a better one than that. Alright guys, that's it for this time. Be sure to send your questions to the contact information in the description, and I'll see you guys later. Busted Gaming Prodigy asks, do you think that they will bring back Zelda to a handheld system, PS3 or Xbox? No, I don't think they're going to make a handheld Zelda game for the PS3 or Xbox.